Yeah, I'm sick of it as well. Look, Steve, I want to put it to you and Jack, but I'll come to Steve first on this one. I want to put it to you, sir, that VAR has increased the cheating in the game rather than decreasing the cheating in the game. And the prime example this weekend I'm going to use is Son. Son against Manchester United. Manchester United goal gets ruled out. My humble opinion, Son initiated the contact. McTominay went to brush him off. Didn't look over his shoulder. Didn't aim for his face. Touched him on his right cheek. Son goes down holding the left side of his face. Referee, who had a view of the incident, let it go on. Let the goal be scored. And then we go to the VAR board where we see it in ultra slow motion, making it look like it was every bit as premeditated as possible.
Yeah, it was a. I mean, there's one thing the players trying it on, isn't there? There's another thing. The referees in that particular situation, the referees have got to be better than that, haven't they? They've got to understand the way football is. They've got to understand that is not a foul by any. Like, there was nobody on social media. There was no one that I saw watching that game who thought it was a foul. It goes back to what Danny Welbeck said, I think, after we played Brighton, and he won that penalty right at the end of the game, and it wasn't a penalty, wasn't it? Robertson kicked the bottom of his foot, but Welbeck basically said, look, like, there was some contact, so I went over because I know VAR will look at it and see contact and give a penalty, and it wasn't that he thought it was a penalty or that he thought he was fouled, but he knew that once you get VAR involved, they see contact and they can't look beyond that as being the criteria for something being a foul. And it was the same thing with the Son thing, that, they looked at a hand making contact, with a face, and they said, well, that's a foul. But then that's what I mean about you coming back to you need referees to be better than that. You need referees to understand the game a lot more than that and understand that it's not a foul, just because you have contact.
What I would say to you as well, Jack, is where does clear and obvious error come into this when the referee was looking straight at the incident?
Yeah, it was stupid, wasn't it? And we can talk about the decision, but first, imagine if that was Mohamed Salah. It would be a completely different story, and I'm sure there would have been a lot more people on the back of Son. But it's like Steve said, it's one of them things where nobody else apart from the officials on that day seemed to think that was a foul, and the game's just gone absolutely mad. Now, a lot of people were like, blaming VAR and all this, and yes, VAR should cut out silly things like that. But this sort of ludicrousy in football has been around for years. I remember Lazar Markovic getting sent off for a similar thing in a European competition for Liverpool a few years back.
The reason I brought it up is because I was incensed last week when we played Real Madrid that Trent got a yellow card for a contact on Vinicius Jr. that was somewhere between the shoulder and the bottom of his neck, and Vinicius Jr. went down on the sidelines holding his face like Trent poked him in the eye.
And just before that, we saw Mane get fouled, which led to, I think it was their second goal, wasn't it? There's something happened with Mane in the build-up, and it wasn't given by the referee. So, yeah, it's the inconsistency for me. It's the incompetence for me. It's everything, and there's that famous out of context Accrington Stanley manager quote, isn't there, where he says about VAR, it's making him fall out of love with football, and he doesn't know why he's doing it anymore. And that's exactly how I feel as a young football fan now. I think VAR and the incompetence of the officials are slowly ruining the game. And if people higher up in football don't get hold of it quickly, then the game is slowly spiraling out of control to somewhere where, us football fans don't want it to go, especially the Premier League.
But is there actually a way of using VAR to get that consistency? I don't even know that there is.
Yeah.
I think you've got out slow-mo replays for a start.
I don't think there is.
They're ridiculous. They make everything look more intent.
It goes back to what we said about football at the start. There are no black and whites. You can't judge. If you go back and look at a penalty that's given and you see no contact, well, that's not the criteria for giving a penalty. You can still be impeded with no contact. That there are no black and whites in football, so you can't. And then I just don't. I just don't see. I see it for goal line technology. I can see how you could adapt it and work with it on offsides. Like beyond that, I want it as far from this game as possible.
Steve, it can be a lot better though, and
But how can it be used for fouls and stuff like that? That's always going to be subjective, isn't it? How can you?
I just don't get the slow-mo part of fouls, gent, or anything like that. It just looks, if you can't spot something in real time, then you've missed it. Even on the replay, show it in real time.
You're looking at a different incident in slow motion, aren't you? It's a different. Looking at a full pace and looking at slow motion, it's a different incident.
I think for me, the big thing that needs to change is, and this was spoken about, it's been spoken about on and off for the last couple of years. You're talking about the fouls thing, Steve, and I get it. You shouldn't have someone in your ear telling a referee who's watched it that it's a foul when the referee himself may watch it back and not think it's a foul, which is why they started going to the screen more. And I think that's...
They were kind of bullied into that, though, Jack. Let's be honest. The UEFA kind of forced them to that.
Absolutely, and now if they go to the screen, they're going to change their decision. So it feels like
so it's pointless, isn't it? You might as well just say overturn it.
But I honestly think the best way to use VAR is simply whoever is telling the person, the on-field referee, what is going on VAR, the referee himself, with no influence from anybody else. The referee should be the one making the final decision all the time. It shouldn't be, there's a professional referee in his ear telling him this, that, and the other. I think it should be an ex-footballer, an ex-pro, no one with a refereeing background sat at Stockley Park going, okay, ref, you might want to look at that back. I don't know the rules behind it, but you will. So watch that back and let me know what you think of that. It should be, in my opinion, that is the way forward. And it shouldn't be another referee telling a referee that he might have got that wrong, because...
Especially not David Coote.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And
you don't want David Coote in your ears, do you? Well, that is the last thing you want.
Every referee officiates the game in a different way. And it doesn't mean, like you said, in football, a lot of the time, there's no right and wrong. There isn't. But at the end of the day, the system is being used wrong. The way they're going about it, it is wrong. And I am just starting to fall out of love with the game, because yet again, we're here. We've had some incredible football matches this weekend. There's the story of, Leeds beating Manchester City. You've got West Ham flying high again. West Brom, look at them. They look like they're turning it around. They're really looking like they're going to make a scrap of it down there. But instead, once again, we're talking about VAR, and I, for one, am sick of it.
Imagine
Steve,
if West
let's
Brom...
go back to talking about this in the pub with our mates, mate. That's where I'd rather be right now. Talking about
beautiful. Yeah,
just the good old days. Because if we're gonna have a rant about football, let's at least be ranting about something that's happened on the pitch, and not some fella sitting a couple of miles away. And
that's it. Like the first 15 minutes of every match of the day are VAR, aren't they? Every single week. Imagine
and
if
none
you
of
were...
us. We remember the old comment, nobody wants to grow up to be a Gary Neville. Well, nobody wants to see Dermot Gallagher and these lads brought out week after week to defend their mates, because that's all they do.
It's just awful. Imagine if you were a West Brom fan. Imagine if they hadn't gone on to win that game the other night, and they'd doomsday scenario, they'd gone down on 3 points, and it had been, that's even worse, isn't it? When they go, actually, we haven't got any angles to draw stupid little lines, so we don't really know. I hate it all, bin it.